I think our hands are fatter somehow, but
yeah, that's okay. I've been eating a
this
lot
is
of
good. I like this.
I've been eating a lot of sodium lately, Jonathan, and drinking so much water.
The future of music.
The future of music. The future of music.
The future of music.
The future of music.
The Future of Music podcast.
Hey there, once again to the Future of Music podcast, where at this point you can recite it with me. We show you how to survive and thrive in the future of music. I am Ryan Withrow, one of your hosts. The other one over, I got it, nailed it the first time with the point. Over here is my main man, Jonathan Boyd. My friend, it's so good to see you. And I just got to be honest with everybody listening. You have no clue what I'm doing here, really. You kind of have like a high level of what's going on. But all we need to know right now is that today's episode, what we're talking about is all the happenings and hot news of music, tech, and AI. It's like hot button and like hot topics. And it's what's going to happen. Like that's it. It's the things, the things that we're going to go over. And it's really exciting. I'm really excited. We wanted to find a way to really talk about some of the crazy things that are going on. And today is the day. But of course, I have to do the thing. Subscribe, follow, click the alert buttons, comment. Feel free to engage. We love seeing you guys engaging with us and following us along this journey. And we'd love to have you along for the ride. But with this, John, I think we're ready to kind of dive in.
I guess we are. I have no clue what you're about to say, so let's see what's going on.
This is breaking news in music technology. And then we're going to do this. The CEO of the Grammys said, we expect that AI songs will get submitted for nominations this year. And also, the Grammys outlined the new rules for AI use. Sir Paul McCartney says there's nothing artificial in new Beatles song made using AI. Sony Music hires Jeff Taylor as the executive VP of artificial intelligence. And Meta open sources an AI-powered music generator. All that and more coming up in breaking news in music technology. All right, so obviously, John, one of the big announcements that recently happened is the Grammys. The CEO announced, first of all, in the first part of the week, that they expect AI-generated songs to be coming their way for Grammy nominations. But really quickly after that, because they're obviously supporting the artists, the Recording Academy kind of gave like a whoa. I don't know if we could do total AI, so maybe if a human contributes to this, then that's the case. But literally, you have to be a human being, not AI, to nominate work for an award. And it has to be that a human is meaningfully involved in, has contributed to the song. So one of those crazy things that we knew was happening, and now it's being discussed. So what are your thoughts on news topic point number one, Grammys all day?
Well, in general, I mean, who cares about the Grammys anymore? Is that even a thing? Okay, I'm just kidding. No, but really, what's the point of the Grammys? It's awards, right? But awards for what?
Music, production, creation, writing. I don't, who knows at this point? I don't know.
But like on a basic level, for what? Like they're voting, people are voting on their favorite one, basically?
Pretty much. I mean, the Academy is voting. Let's be honest there. So that's why I feel like the Academy has to come out and have this stipulation, because it almost feels like, is that because they've befriended all of these music industry people at this point, and they're fearful that those relationships are going to be affected with this announcement?
Could be, yeah. So that's two different things, because if we go down the politics route, that's a completely different conversation. There's different motivations. But in terms of, let's say, winning a Grammy, assuming people get voted for best song, best video, whatever, I don't think it really matters at that point, because a song is a song. If people like it, whether it's produced by AI or not, does it really matter?
It's a good point. But, then you have to start thinking about the interest, right? We've heard people like, who was it? Ice Cube coming out and saying he's completely against the idea of using his voice for AI production. So obviously there's a lot of hesitancy from him on that side, and a lot of other artists too. We've talked to a lot of artists here that are like, that's a little weird. I don't want somebody to use me without it being me. But what about outside of that? There's really no harm, I think, in the fact that you do AI with no emulation of anybody else's voice or style, and you're just writing things to write and be creative. I don't see a problem with it. So I'm interested why it's such a big deal.
Well, I mean, let's break it down like super far. If you play guitar and you use a guitar pick is a tool. AI is just a tool, technically. So
Well, I think you solved it. So I'm going to put you in front of the Grammys.
let me talk to him. Call him up.
let me send them a guitar pick first so they can take a look, and then my analogy will work even better.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see these stories popping up now, though. And the fact that, backtrack a bit, that the CEO is expecting submissions in the next year for AI, just because of how much it's taken off, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, but I mean, you can't get away from it at this point. So if you're involved in anything in music, everybody's talking about AI. Everybody's talking about, hey, did you see this music generator? Did you see this riff this guy wrote? Did you see this video? Everybody's running for the hills because AI is coming. I mean, you can't get away from it. So that's just the direction things are going in. We got to embrace it somehow.
Yeah, and you got to think of that future moment when an AI wins, right?
Who wins? Where do we send the award, though? Who comes on stage?
It's payable by Bitcoin and ones and zeros. That's how it's
just
paid.
A wallet address. Just send it there. Send the Grammy Award to a wallet.
Yeah, that's how they're fed. You have to feed it with ones and zeros and Bitcoin, I think is what the computers take these days. So, talking about Grammys, Paul McCartney, man, I remember a few weeks ago, he comes out and he talks about how he's going to be using AI. And the idea initially in conversation that we had heard was that McCartney said he was going to redo certain voices. So like he was going to go back and have like 30-year-old him singing on this, and all the other band members that have passed since then, all of their styles and music, everything. And everybody was excited, but there was a small percentage of people that were not so excited. So he recently had to come out and clarify a little differently that he brought in the AI technology, and it's for specifically an unreleased Beatles demo from the 70s. And he said AI has only been used in small variations on the voices of John Lennon in the recordings. And that's it. It's essentially, we're only using it to make it sound better and restore it. No big deal. Nothing major. So it feels like a slight backpedal, potentially, because of the flack he received in announcing that AI was going to be used. But it's very interesting to see that there's two sides. He's very excited. He's one of those people that was embracing it, still is, but had to like mitigate and kind of push down the amount he wanted to use based on feedback.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just curious, why do you think he cares about that?
I don't know. When you think about back in the day, it was all about the labels, records. When you think about that life, I guess I should say, back when they were in their prime making it, you have to wonder how much is the brain stuck there, because that was success and where success was. And it really wasn't in this like new revolutionary thing. I'm going to go off the rails a bit and try something completely different, let alone the audience. I also consider the audience probably very similar. A lot of those audience members are probably thinking that that's not true Beatles. That's not it. We don't ruin a good thing. Don't ruin the Beatles as we know it and do computer stuff with Beatles voices. So you have to consider, I guess, at this point that you have this weight. You have to weigh the options of the audience and how they're going to receive it and how they're 50%. Probably it's going to be like 50% of them are like, yeah, we'd love to hear new Beatles stuff as if you guys were still all together. And then the other side is like, quit while you're ahead. Like, stop. You guys did an amazing thing. Stop keeping on trying to recreate it with something. And I think that's something we're going to see a lot with the bands that are starting to use AI, and all of the old voices that are being pulled into AI is this argument of, do you just leave it alone or do you bring it back?
That's super interesting, though, because if you think about, I mean, everybody has their different view on it, right? But there's this idea that if he uses AI and they're going to come out with new Beatles songs, that somehow the old Beatles songs are going to be tarnished, right? But in reality, nothing's changing. It's all the same old stuff. This is just new stuff. So it's kind of funny because it points to really what it seems like is happening is the people who are upset about it are kind of upset about changing the memory that they have about those old songs or enjoying those old songs, because there's nothing stopping them from listening to the same old songs. It's just new stuff. And every band who is, we had a conversation earlier about albums and the way that albums are changing now. Artists are starting to put out singles because it doesn't make sense to do albums anymore. But when bands put out albums, you may like the first one, the second one, the third one, or whatever, and then they put out another one, and you may not like it. That's just how it goes. Like it's just interesting to see people try to defend like what they want to hold on to, like what they like, even though it doesn't change anything about what they like.
Yeah. And it's that fear of change. We talk about that a lot too, right?
Yeah.
With the AI and the tech world, it's this fear of change. Like, why would you do that? You got a good thing just as is. Don't do anything.
Mhm.
And what a lot of fans, especially, don't realize is there's a really good reason for it. One, it's to embrace it, but you're just one. You're just one of many human beings out there. Who doesn't know the Beatles, which is definitely out there? There are a lot of generations, younger people, that really don't listen to it, and they're not interested in it that much. So who's to say that we can't introduce them to the Beatles and the legacy of the Beatles with this technology that they're all following with AI music and they're all interested in? Won't it pique their interest a little bit to go back and listen to the actual artists?
It's an interesting point, and that also makes me think of like, imagine if you can go to a concert, and I know we're not talking about virtual reality necessarily right now, but imagine if you can go to a concert or even hear an album of like James Brown and 70s Paul McCartney. That never happened. But what if you could hear it? What would that be like? Or what if you could go to a concert in VR or something, you actually see them playing, see all of the old heroes, Jimi Hendrix? Wouldn't it be cool to go? I would put on a headset and watch Jimi Hendrix play guitar on stage. It would be cool.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Again, it's moving so fast. I think that's the other issue for a lot of people, is that these AI music just came out, 20 minutes ago, and it's already where it's at. To where the Beatles are like, maybe we should use it. And it's like it has gone so far in such a little time that I think it's hard to bite into for a lot of people. It's like, the defense that people think UFOs exist, but the government doesn't want them to know because it'll freak them out. It's one of those. Like they're freaking out right now. They're starting to freak out. It's too much info.
That's true. And actually, if you look up on Google Trends, the words AI music or music AI, the trend is basically flat for a long time. And then I think in about the middle of 2022, if I'm not mistaken, it literally hockey sticks. It goes straight up. And it's just been an explosion over the last few months.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's so wild to be a part of it and just sit back and see what people are doing to solve it. Like we mentioned before, Sony. So Sony obviously is probably looking at all this AI stuff and thinking, oh my gosh, like we make a lot of our money with record deals and being like under the label umbrella of artists. And now people are going independent and getting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views on things like YouTube by making stuff without record labels. So what does our future look like in 20 years? Is it going to be relevant? Are we going to be around? So they actually made the move recently to hire a specific role, which is Executive VP of AI. The guy's name is Jeff Taylor. Like it's insane. He's going to report directly to the COO of Sony Music Entertainment. Wow. And it's insane to me. He's the executive vice president of AI. And according to the memo that was released, his responsibilities are listed and include coordinating the company's business efforts surrounding artificial intelligence and to coordinate across the global digital business and legal affairs division. So it seems like they're bringing him not only to really understand AI and how to use it and where it's going, but also the defensive side. How do we battle against it as Sony? And it's interesting to see that.
Makes sense. Yeah, but also if you think about this, if we zoom way out, Sony's a huge company, and if I'm probably mistaken, I think Sony is 100-year-old company. It may be a different one that I'm thinking about, but they're an old company. They've been around for a long time. They're a huge company, and they've been very, very successful. So just the fact that companies like this are making these kind of moves demonstrate that, or at least illustrate that this stuff is coming. They know it's coming. They know that something as big is going to come from all this stuff, and it's not going away. And this is the future. So it's
Yeah.
really fascinating to watch that happen, especially as I think we were kind of the last generation to see like tapes, cassette tapes, and then CDs, and then whatever, I can't even remember at this point, MP3s, and then all that stuff, and records made a comeback, and the different music formats. It's just really, really interesting to see how fast all of this stuff has evolved, and it's speeding up to the point where huge companies like Sony are, arming up basically for this whole AI thing,
Yeah.
and it's just fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I do people even know what an MP3 is at this point since they stream? Like, do they even understand that?
I don't
Which
know,
I'm
honestly.
sure there's a big percentage of people that just pop open a streaming app and just listen, and they never think about like, this is an MP3. It doesn't happen. I remember going from the cassette world into the CD world, and you still had like that cassette that you put in to the cassette holder, and it plugged into your CD player, your portable
Oh
one.
yeah,
And you had to like play on the cassette, and then you would play through whatever was playing. But like, to go from that, and not that long ago, I'm not old, I'm old, but I'm not old, right? That's the key. But just in that small amount of time, and now seeing us get to the point where that doesn't even matter, right? Format doesn't even matter really. People are kind of buying vinyls again, but it's a small percentage.
yeah.
But
It's
outside of that, they're streaming. They don't care about the record label.
mhm.
Sometimes they don't even care about the artist. They'll stream music on YouTube that's on a playlist. No cares about who wrote it. It's just in the background, and it's good for focus.
It's true.
So yeah, so it's interesting to see people trying to get ahead of it, because I guarantee that's what's happening with people like Sony. They're trying to get ahead of this. We're kind of screwed if we don't do anything,
Totally.
because all of our money is in an artist and being a label, and this stuff is taking off so fast that we're going to be gone really quick.
So what do you think they're trying to get ahead of? Why do you think they're, arming up for all of this stuff?
Profit, man.
Well,
That's
yeah, but I
like,
mean, what do they see coming? That's what I'm getting at.
it's a good question. So I think they obviously see that creating music is becoming way easier, and it's only getting easier. It's been simple in the past, 5 years, 10 years for an independent artist to establish themselves and start to get a really
Mhm.
good following on socials and sell merch and sell albums. And, that probably was a decent hit, but you still have people where I know I was just talking to a musician. I think it was when we were on with a musician recently. Can't remember which one, but we were talking to a musician that literally said, I got to shop it around to labels. So they still exist. They're still
Yeah.
out there. But once you remove the need for the artist, then
Mhm.
everybody's in the pocket of independent artists if
That's
they want to be.
interesting.
So, if you have a guitarist that's like, man, I really want to get out there. I'm no good at the marketing stuff, but like, look at my presence. Here I am. Sony's like, we still have somebody to go after and make money after,
Yeah.
or make money off of. And when it becomes just a computer program, and they can create something in 2 minutes and just put it on, and it fails or it works, and then the
Huh.
next one, and then the next one, they lose the need for the oversight and management. I think that's the big thing. They're realizing that they're becoming irrelevant if they don't fix it.
So that's interesting. So maybe a position that did exist, or positions that did exist, or a platform that did exist as a middleman can be going away. But do you think that they would, if you just said like the need for the artist is going away, and basically let's just make an assumption that there's going to be more and more AI generated music, which as of right now, it's like a tool that a human has to use, to push buttons or tell it what to do to prompt it, right?
Mhm.
But probably pretty soon, probably like an hour from right now, uh, somebody will create something that can, it probably already exists, honestly, that they can write, programs to create music, to write guitar solos, to write songs, or whatever it is. So do you think that if the management positions, the middleman positions of, let's say, the it's now old school record label dynamic of having a label as a middleman, as the marketing person, the marketing arm, etc., who markets an artist, and if the artist is taken out of the picture, do you think that big companies like Sony might get in the game of actually creating AI artists and just mass producing them and trying to take over?
It's definitely possible. I think at least what I feel initially from companies that are like this, that it almost feels scarcity first.
Uh-huh.
So we have the two sides, right? There's abundance and then there's scarcity. And abundance is like somebody that lives in like that dreamer brain, like myself, right? Which is like everything is going to be great. Here's why. Everything's going to be a wonderful, wonderful oasis.
Mhm.
Scarcity is they wake up and they go, we're screwed in 2 years. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. This is terrible. My life is ending. And I need to fix it. So it almost feels like they're trying to get ahead of it in a scarcity way, where right now they're just like, we got to get legal stuff set up. We got to make sure that we're backed by all of our legal documentation.
Yeah.
And we need somebody to head that division so that we're not losing money and we're not getting screwed. I think eventually they'll start to realize that it's an uphill battle the entire time.
Mhm.
And then they'll kind of reframe the thought around, well, how can we make money with it then? And
Yeah.
then it becomes this whole new game, which is who signed under us that we could start to use
Mhm.
legally in all of the AI potentially. And then they could just start finding all these artists and just mimicking their voices. They could start finding the independent artists and like doing slight variations on their
Yeah.
voices. So it's kind of like Skynet in that way, where you're like, I don't know. And then also the other side that I instantly thought of as you're talking about AI music is, when does the AI start trying to push its own music? So,
Yeah.
it can create. So if we allow it to create and we're like, we don't need to prompt you anymore. Create music. That's your job. Make music and
Mhm.
make it popular. When does AI start to try to push its way in and try to take over and try to be better than record labels and understand that they're a middleman that is not needed? There's so many different depths of this. So I just went on the tangent. I went down the rabbit hole. I'm open
It's
for
good. That's
conversation.
what we're
Let's go.
for. Yeah, that's what we're here for. So that's super interesting. But you know what? I bet people are already working on that right now. It's kind of like being able to sit behind your computer and program a bot to go do everything for you, right? That's exactly what it is. I just had a thought too as you were talking that what's the guy's name from Sony? The guy who just got hired, the AI guy?
Yeah. Jeff Taylor.
We should get Jeff on the podcast and we should just
Geoff.
ask him these questions. We
Geoff
should just see
Taylor.
what's up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a friend. We can only say Geoff because Jonathan and I have a friend named Jeff, spells it Geoff. Okay. That's I think it's very offensive otherwise if you say that. But Jeff Taylor, yeah, we should be reaching out to him. So Jeff, I'll reach out to you. That'll happen.
Yeah, but okay, here's something interesting as well. We've already have bands like the Gorillas, for example. The Gorillas is like a faceless band,
Mhm.
and we know there are quote faceless YouTube channels where it's just like AI created content. There's just B-roll footage. There's music, etc. Maybe they explain something like 5 ways to wrap a present. I don't know. Some informational content, But what if the big companies like Sony, for example, with resources to put behind this, they kind of see this trend coming and they start creating almost like they're turning into a production company that are creating shows where they create characters, aka bands or artists, right? And they're like cartoon characters, and they can create an army of these things and have all this different types of music and have all this like as you were saying, run programs to self-promote it everywhere and just like crowd out the whole marketplace, and like that becomes what music is, because I don't know, it's just a crazy thought.
Yeah. And then what becomes of the regular artist at that
Yeah,
point? Because they don't have to pay these things that they're making.
exactly.
And also, they're all created, all of their content, I should say, is created on algorithm,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's so you no longer have people sitting down going, I've got to write a hit. How do I write a hit? Let me
Yeah,
figure it out. Let me try my best. No, it's like, no, this thing, the computer generated hits 100%. No question. It's always generating hits.
and that's crazy because what is a hit, right? A hit is uh in this case a song that takes over some kind of attention share in the marketplace. The marketplace is people who listen to songs. So like the thing that's going to play on, let's just take the medium of the radio. The thing that's going to play on the radio the most, assuming people listen to the radio. But now it's like a lot of different platforms and stuff, but let's just focus on the radio. So like you said, if you have, for years there have been programs that analyze hit songs, and there's all these similarities like chord progression, like 1 5 6 4 or whatever, the popular chord progressions. Well, what if all these AI tools analyze all this stuff and they create an algorithm that's like the hit machine 5000 or something, and it cranks out 5000 hits, every hour, and just by statistics alone, you're going to find some hits, and those hits can be bigger than any of the other hits that any artist can make on their own. So literally, it's kind of the same thing that we just had another, a guest on, Bernd, and he was talking about making a volume of YouTube videos, and basically, depending on how many you put out, there are a few that are going to be hits. Most of them will be kind of and some of them will bomb. So statistically, about 20% of your stuff will work. And if they just have the resources and the manpower, the machine power at this point to crank out all those hits with the Hitmaster 5000, then I mean, theoretically, they can literally take over all the charts.
Yeah. For some reason, I just thought of Willy Wonka as you were talking through the name of the Hitmaster 5000. Yeah.
Copywriting that.
Yeah. Introducing. No, and then it's almost like you see this timeline, right? Of, everybody needing to go to the record label. So they're like super dependent on record labels way back in the day. And then they always probably saw this rise of independent artists happening. But there's never been a massive amount of they're going to take over, right?
Yeah.
So they haven't had to worry about it so much. I'd say within the last year, they probably have had some concerns just because of how much Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube are starting to influence music. So much that I know here at Austin City Limits Music Festival, at least 3 or 4 of some of the near headline bands are unsigned artists. They're independent.
Really?
Yeah. So when you think about the fact that I think 2 of them got their start on TikTok and YouTube and grew there, and now they're playing massive festivals. It's like 2 below a headliner. It starts to give you the feeling that a company like Sony might be paying attention now, let alone they're dealing with that. And now they're like, well, now the independent artist, quote unquote, multiplies 100-fold, 1,000-fold at this point, and we got to get ahead of it. So super interesting to see, and we'll see like what is he actually doing in the role when he takes over the role. But it seems like there's a little bit of focus on that legal affairs division and him making sure that that's all upheld. But with that, we talked about Sony, obviously, and we talked a lot about AI-powered music generators. What was it? The Hitmaker 5000?
Hitmaster.
Hitmaster. So
kind of like the Thigh Master. It's the next generation. Yeah.
You got the Thigh Master, the Hip Master, and now the Hit Master, ladies and gentlemen. Same tool, same exact one.
All in one.
It's the all-in-one. That's it.
I think you can get one in Costco.
Make independent music while you work out. That's
perfect.
Man.
All right.
So speaking of music generation with the AI, Meta has finally started to get into it as well. So Music Gen is Meta's music generating tool that can turn text descriptions into about 12 seconds of audio at this point, give or take. So you could type in something like, I want an 80s driving pop song with heavy drums and synth pads in the background. And it'll spit out a result, which is actually really, really good, but it's very short. It doesn't have a long life. But we all know, again, 20 minutes. It'll be 12 minutes long to 12 hours long at that point. But it can be steered with reference audio too. So we kind of talked about the idea of the Beatles stuff. So you can literally now say, I want something that sounds like the Beatles, but it's more of an 80s pop song with synths and all of this. So Meta says that Music Gen was trained on 20,000 hours of existing music, including 10,000 high-quality licensed music tracks. So it's actually going through and listening to licensed material, and it's a company outside of what is producing the licensed material. So it's almost like we had the Sony conversation, and now Meta and other music generation companies are starting to go, I mean, we're not going to use that music, but we can mimic from it. So let's start to steal from it without actually stealing from it. So you're starting to see other people tap into it, which is really interesting. And especially Meta, who will be able to use this all over the place with their VR, with their social platforms, whatever it may be. But Meta's getting into the game, man. So, all of that time listened, 12-second tracks, just bite-sized
Perfect.
chunks right now.
Yeah, that's what you want. No, but really, serious question. One of the applications might be Meta is developing. Obviously, they changed their whole name to Meta because they're going the whole VR route, or at least they were going to. And I could see them. I was gonna say maybe using music for certain media that they produce, like games or whatever it is, but they don't actually produce anything. They're just a platform. So either way, if they did, that could be an application for it. But serious question, why do you think Meta is getting into this? What do you think they want to do with it?
I don't know, man. Yeah, who knows what the robot at the helm is doing? I don't know. Is he real? I don't know. It's possible that he isn't. But I would say that they're just seeing the slice of the pie at this point. They're starting if companies that have no interest in the music industry
Yeah,
are starting to get into AI generated music. It
that's
should tell
true.
you there's a massive trend and likelihood that there is a lot going on in the world of AI music. But also financially, when you start thinking about other companies that license music and content, and they're able to, for example, like on Instagram Reels, one of the big trending things right now that you do is you find trending music and
Hmm.
you add it to your reel and it boosts the music and it boosts the algorithm, but they are fully dependent on people creating that stuff.
Yeah.
And just those small things. The fact that it's 12 seconds makes me kind of, that seems like a short. That seems like a reel
Hmm.
length. So are they trying to get to a point where they no longer have to pay the artists that are getting these trending sounds to go because they pay them? And instead they're like, we'll do it. We'll make them real good. It'll be fine. It'll be good. That's an option. The other option is that, again, they're seeing the ability to take likelihood or likeness from these other massive entities and just have
Yeah.
it learn from it and produce stuff that legally they're covered.
Yeah, but again, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't. What are they going to do with it? I mean, obviously they haven't some idea, or else they wouldn't be hiring all these folks and getting into the game, creating music gen, etc. So of course there's something behind it, but I'm just wondering a couple of things, and this is the reason why I'm asking this. It's like the gold rush, right? There's gold in the Western United States, so everybody rushes and goes over there and tries to find gold or whatever. Maybe tiny percentage of people found stuff, but most of the people, uh, quote, rushed over there and came out empty-handed. And that's because it got saturated so fast. And that happens with any product, that happens with any new technology that comes out. It gets saturated really fast. So this AI music thing, I could see them, if they make music for their own, let's say, platform, they use it on Instagram to boost algorithms, whatever it is. I could see that as an application to enhance something else that they already do. But it's like the idea of directly profiting off of AI generated music would become so saturated so fast that it might last a month or two and there's no more money to be made.
Yeah.
And another thing before I forget about it, you mentioned 12 seconds. This is a separate kind of a tangential topic, but do you think that songs will actually get shorter? Like songs could be 30 seconds, 59 seconds, 12 seconds.
That's possible. I mean, don't tell Dream Theater. Don't tell Dream Theater that that's the possibility. I think they can't write under 30 minutes. But yeah, it's possible. I mean, our attention spans are diminishing
Yeah.
every single day. It's
Less than a
why,
goldfish, right?
yeah, well, it's been that. I think in 2012, it was less than a goldfish. So if you imagine now, what,
It's like less than a
11
silverfish
years
now.
later? Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And the reasons that all those algorithms work the way they do, like TikTok, is all based on attention span and retention.
Yeah.
So the fact that whenever I create a TikTok short or whatever I need to do, the fact that every 2 seconds I have to change the view isn't
Yeah.
because it looks cool. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. But it's because now people scrolling through require that. They require that to retain attention on something before they swipe away and they go to the next. So you have like 2 seconds to get attention, but then you could lose it in 2 seconds. And then in
Yeah.
2 seconds, it's
Same.
insane, the attention span. So does that translate to music? Maybe people are starting, because I know TikTok artists are really big They're growing tremendously, as well as Instagram artists, but they're all only posting shorts of maybe a chorus or maybe a pre-chorus. And they're starting to take off from those shorts, and then people dig into the full song if they want to, but some of them don't.
Yeah.
Some of them are just like, see, this video is 40 seconds. I really like them. We should go see them live. So there's so many different applications, let alone we're talking it's Meta. And you talked about VR. So are they trying to connect the dots somewhere with VR technology and AR technology and music generation with AI? Are they trying to create games or some type of interface within the platforms that will allow people to experience music creation from within the metaverse? I don't know. There are so many things that they could do, and it's Facebook, Meta, so they'll probably do them all. I'm not sure, but it's one of those things. We talked about music industry people, Beatles, Sony, but it's time to pay attention when people that have no hand in the music industry start to be like, it's time. I have to start to dive into this.
Yeah, it's that makes me think actually of I'm not sure how much you follow this stuff, but recently, well, historically, which is not that many years, right? The whole crypto idea has been a very niche topic, a very kind of secretive, or at least viewed by the public, a very secretive type thing. And most recently, some of the biggest asset managers in the world, like BlackRock, Fidelity, all that stuff, filed for a Bitcoin ETF, and that's like the equivalent of crypto going mainstream, right?
Yeah.
So now it seems like because of all of this AI stuff and potential profits, really, either directly or indirectly, now it seems like the quote mainstream big tech companies are actually starting to face music, and music is no longer this. Music is not fringe, right? It's always been a mainstream thing, but it's its own topic. It's its own thing. Artists, musicians, etc. But now even non-musicians, non-musical companies, etc., are starting to face it, starting to do something with it, try to capture some opportunity with it. It's just a really interesting thing to observe.
Yeah, 100%. So it literally, by the way, it only takes around 16 gigs of memory to run the program they're building at this point. And like me being somebody that used to play, like Doom on Windows 95, knowing that something like that can run on the most primitive, basic of computers at this point is amazing. I mean, back then we would need factories full of computing to do what it's doing. But again, it's happening, and it's only going to come quicker, faster, bigger. Other companies are going to start digging in, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with the tech, and we'll make sure that we follow it. But those are the headlines from breaking news.
One last thought on that last thing.
Okay,
and this is kind of going down a little slightly different rabbit hole, but let's say companies like Meta, for example, are developing. Google has one too, right? A music generator, and these AI music generators. There's a ton of them at this point, and I think maybe that's because they're easy to make. It sounds cool. People can click buttons and make music with it or whatever. But on the commercial side, I can see how that can be useful because you don't have to have an artist, you don't have to license anything, you don't have to whatever. You don't have to pay a middleman. You can just have an algorithm create the music for you. Especially if, like we talked about with Meta or a game developer or some entity that needs music production, well, they can just produce it with a computer at this point. I can see how that's useful, directly useful. But what about people actually, like humans, actually playing music? Do you think that because you can go to a computer and click a few buttons or whatever and a song pops out, do you think that somehow fulfills the need of humans to make their own music? Or will like for example, will like trying to learn guitar and piano and all that stuff start to diminish? Or do you think that will still that fire will still burn?
Good question. I would say it's a generation thing. So by that, I mean, if AI music is a thing through lasting generations, so, in the next 5 generations that are coming, it's still a thing and it's growing and it's become a mainstream thing. I think there's a high likelihood that we see a massive drop in actual instrument artists playing instruments. I think it'll take a few generations for that to happen, for sure. So I think, maybe 2-3 generations down the line, we'll start to see people being like, why would I have to learn that? Look at this thing. This is easy. So it just depends on the longevity, I guess, is what I could say. of AI music, let alone the growth, if there's a stopping point or not. A lot of the artists that we talk to, you and I, are all coming from the space of people want the creator.
Yeah.
So they want to have an actual creator and an actual mind in there. But that's because we're in this generation that our whole generation was bands and artists and guitar players. What happens when the first generation comes along where AI music is the most powerful music? They're going to want to learn to code more than they are probably play guitar. But I feel like there'll be the outliers, a small percentage of people that are like, I'm old school. I play the guitar, and it's sad to think that might be old school at some point. But I think that we could see a massive drop in people actually playing instruments. But at the same time, is that what it really is? Or does the computer become the new age instrument for music?
Yeah, fascinating. I don't know. Could go the other way around and could enable a lot more people to play music.
Yeah, and I think so. I think that's the case. And I think that for a long time, there'll be a distinction in listeners' brains where they'll be able to say, this is AI. It's great. I love it. This is AI. But then they'll be able to go, I love this guitar player. He's an incredible guitar player. He's a human being. So I think there'll be that separation for many generations. But if it continues the way it's going and there's no stop, yeah, I'd say 4 generations and 5 generations, it's not really a thing that people strive for, mostly because it becomes quick and easy. And people like the magic pill thing, instead of looking at a guitar and going, I have to work 10 years to shred. They're like, I just have to look up something for 10 minutes and I can sound like I shred. Done. I'll just do that. So I'll be really sad when it happens if that's the case. And I'll wish that I would have thought of the technology and the computer first, I guess. But, other than that, guitar. So, yeah, I think that is really, really a good conversation. And we'll have to see where it goes, man. It's flying so quick that this conversation we're having, as I say, 4 to 5 generations. It could be 4 to 5 years or months for all we know, where we're in those conversations and seeing a massive struggle with actual artists and musicians happen. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how companies like Sony deal with that problem on their side too, as they bring in the experts to deal with it. But my friend, that is breaking news in music technology. Those are the top headlines for this week. First of all, thanks for being here during our rants and rambles. We appreciate it. And know that we want you to subscribe. We want you to click the alert button. We want you to follow us on all podcast platforms as well, if you're not already, and interact. We comment back. So if you want to comment on the YouTube videos, feel free and go from there. Closing thoughts, John, from you on all of this wonderful news that you had no idea I was bringing to the table, let alone putting our heads on slightly larger than life bodies for the presentation.
I love the larger than life bodies. Yeah, but I actually really enjoy not knowing what's going to be in the headlines. So even if I've seen it before, read it before, etc., it's really interesting to talk about because it brings up thoughts that are just immediate, gut reactions, etc. So yeah, can't wait to do it again, man. It's going to change tomorrow, so lots of stuff to keep up to date about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll keep reading the headlines to bring them to the headlines.
There you go.
And then we'll have more headlines and we'll have more episodes here soon. We appreciate you all for listening to the Future of Music podcast. Have an incredible day.
See ya.